My name is Taryn Tenney, and I am a 6th grade teacher here at McLean School.
I am Mary Catherine Etherton. I am the kindergarten teacher at the McLean School in Maryland.
My name is Heavenly Hicks, and I am a grade 6 teacher at the McLean School of Maryland.
Richard Fisher, upper school history teacher at the McLean School of Maryland.
I had my first encounter with mindfulness starting here at McLean, so this is my first year here as a teacher, and it was actually an opportunity that was presented to us professionally to learn a practice that we could use as a tool in our classroom to help our kids. So I had the opportunity to practice it, and we had a parent that came in and instructed us on it, which was really good to see that firsthand, and then I also went to a training.
Mindfulness is a term that I've heard before but never knew what the definition meant or truly knew what mindfulness was. My first week here at McLean, the head of school, Mike Saxenian, spoke of mindfulness and introduced mindfulness to us. So I became more familiar with it, and then throughout the course of the training that I took from Mindful Schools, I got to know more about mindfulness and how to implement it into the classroom.
I practice mindfulness on my own, and that's where I first encountered it, just seeking a way for me to be able to manage stress and just the everyday hustle and bustle. And I found that it would be a great idea to incorporate that in my classroom since I have a high population of children with ADHD and high anxiety. And it started out as just a couple of moments of silence, but I realized there was a frame around that was missing. When one of my homeroom students' parents dropped in on my class, she mentioned mindfulness to me and that there was an actual program designed around that to actually give the frame that I was missing. That parent came in and talked to my class, and it just grew organically from there within our school.
I first encountered mindfulness from Louisa, who came here, I believe, because our head of school, Mike Saxenian, asked her to explain the concept and kind of introduce it. And Dr. A, which I always call her, Louisa, came and spoke to a teachers' meeting.
Mindfulness has had a lot of benefits for me, personally and really professionally. I think professionally it's really given me a really strong tool to use with our kids. A lot of times they may come in from a particular class feeling really amped up or unfocused, or they may even come in first thing in the morning and kind of need that time to gather their thoughts and gather themselves together. And it makes me feel better able to address those moments and give them strategies to kind of help manage their behavior and where they're feeling kind of emotionally or how their anxiety is. Like, it's just another tool that's really valuable to use.
When I think of mindfulness and what it has helped me with, the benefits I see are breathing when being able to deal with situations that arise, and the gratitude. I tend to carry stress on me, and the mindfulness breathing has helped me calm down and be able to breathe and handle everything with a positive aspect and think, okay, yes, nothing's going right, but I can still keep on going and keep my sanity.
For me, mindfulness has given me that frame that I was missing in my classroom, and it's given me tools and it's given me skills that I can pull from to help my kids help themselves. I think the self-advocacy piece and being able to become self-sufficient is a piece that is missing within the sphere of education as a whole. And mindfulness is a great way for kids to reach into their own figurative toolbox and pull out a breath exercise or pull out a sound exercise that'll help them regain balance and focus throughout the day, which is something invaluable that they can take with them anywhere.
What has mindfulness done for me? I don't know that it's something that it's really done for me. I think it's something that I try to go back to and tap into. So I guess it has given me a way to think about thinking. It's given me a way to think about communicating It's given me maybe a way to try to empathize with the kids. It's not, as you probably know, it's not very specific. One has to try to kind of tap into the idea of being mindful, which doesn't always happen, but it's a nice strategy.
I use mindfulness in a variety of ways. I think that part of going through the training has made me, for lack of a better word, more mindful of how I approach every moment in my teaching day. I think being more acutely aware of where the kids are at when they come in emotionally allows me to be more sensitive in responding to their needs. But I find myself using a lot of positive self-talk and breathing. Like I check in with myself periodically throughout the day and notice where I'm feeling tension or stress or where I might be holding on to anxiety. And by using mindful practice, I'm able to kind of label and work through those things and then approach the rest of my day with a clearer head. I also use mindfulness a lot when I'm running. When I start to feel really stressed or if I'm fighting my body, I'm always checking in with myself, and that helps me to have a successful run.
For me, the main practices I use for mindfulness are mindful breathing and mindful gratitude. Mindful breathing just throughout the day, helping with calming down when I'm feeling overwhelmed and just being able to handle everything with a level-headed mind. And also for the gratitude, because I know everything can go totally south throughout the day, but I know by the end of the day there's at least 3 things I'm grateful for that day, and it helps me see the positive within the chaos.
The main practice that I do with my students is visualization. I really try to make sure that they have moments throughout the day where they can picture themselves either wiping away earlier frustrations or seeing themselves completing a test successfully or as a good person, or feeling positive, or in an environment that makes them feel positive, so that they know that even if they can't control their circumstances, they can start to balance and manage how they feel within those circumstances.
Well, mindfulness in my students in the classroom, I heard Dr. A, who introduced mindfulness to the McLean School, once say in a meeting that young people tend to, what was her words, react and regret. And she was speaking about it. She said, you know how young people can react and then immediately regret. And I thought to myself, yeah, I know that. I see that in some of my younger students all the time. And she explained how maybe what mindfulness can attempt to do is give students some skills to try to relax and recognize their own thoughts, and that maybe some of their impulsiveness could be understood by them, and that therefore maybe they wouldn't sort of react and regret. They could be a little bit more thoughtful with the process. And I've found that that's happening.
I think probably what made the biggest impact for me was doing some of the practice lessons in our mindful weekend that we had here. We did an exercise that talked the kids through kind of what would happen before a test. And really centering themselves and using a lot of positive imagery. And I've seen that probably work the most effectively consistently, is that kind of ramped up anxiety feeling that they all have right before they get a test. It allows them to settle down enough to really perform better, because they're not so concerned about getting the wrong answer. It really changes their focus from, oh my God, I'm going to fail, to I can do this. And just that positive mindset has made a big difference in their overall test performance when we've used that.
My students enjoy the mindful eating primarily because they got to taste food and use their 5 senses to really know what a marshmallow looks like, tastes like, smells like, feels like, sounds like. So they love that aspect, probably because of the sweet treat with it. They also enjoy the mindful breathing too, and watching a stuffed animal and their stomachs go up and down.
Mindfulness has helped my students tremendously. For one example, after a series of impromptu snow days, my kids came back and they were bouncing off the rafters. And I knew that I needed to start a new unit and that they weren't going to be focused where they were. So we used mindfulness at the beginning of the class, and we talked about frenetic energy and how there are times where you just kind of feel like there's almost a roller coaster going through your body. That's how juiced up and pumped up you are. So we did a body scan, and we started from the tops of our head and we went all the way to the bottom of our feet. Took us maybe about 2.5 minutes to go through it. By the end of it, my class was calmer. They were focused. They were ready to complete their task. And I found that my class flew by, and it flew by productively. And I think that as a whole, there's no one right or wrong student where mindfulness works for them. There's this idea that it has to be a student who is really frustrated or really challenged, who doesn't know how to control their emotions or control themselves, when really mindfulness is a tool that works for any student and for every student. So it works for the quiet student that's always organized as much as it does for the student that is constantly off task or doesn't know how to communicate or process their feelings.
Well, you know, we start with kind of a meditation, which is kind of recognizing what's going on in your body, and we start with a you know, it's only about 5 minutes of kind of breathing and being mindful about our body, our postures, our breath, and I find that I really enjoy that. It sets a nice climate, and because as many people know, when high schoolers come into the room, they bring in maybe anxieties, excitements, frustrations, and if they can kind of not run away from it, but recognize it, and as people would say in mindfulness, kind of label it, they can perhaps make room for a more focused study in class.
I have a lot of different stories. I'm trying to think of something that would be really poignant. I think probably one of the best things that's happened as a result of mindfulness is we had the opportunity during our morning meetings to choose students, and they would volunteer to actually guide the rest of the 6th grade in mindfulness for the morning. And I think after going through the mindful training with Dr. Alvizu, the whole 6th grade going through it with her, as well as the teachers getting mindfulness training separately, I think it kind of got everybody on the same page. And so it really empowered the teachers to feel comfortable empowering the kids, if that makes sense, to really take charge of mindfulness and begin using it in their own way. And how they do mindfulness is very different than how we would approach it as teachers, because they relate to it, their peers, differently. So having the opportunity to watch our students be really brave and volunteer to take us on kind of a mindful journey in the morning in front of the entire 6th grade, which is 44 kids and 4 teachers, that was pretty amazing. I think that's happened a few times, so that's been pretty cool.
One of my favorite mindfulness stories is when Dr. Louisa Alfazu came in with her piggies one day and gave each student a piggy to pound their stomach and watch them go up and down. And the students just loved it because they each had a little piggy stuffed animal that they hugged and just watched on their bellies. And some were really good about making their stomachs go up and down with it. Others had a little difficult, but they just loved that stuffed animal.
I have a couple of favorite stories. One that comes to mind is I had a student who actually shared with his peers that he was taking an exam and he found himself completely drifting. He was not at all focused, and he stopped for a moment and said, I need to do mindfulness. He started doing a couple of breath exercises. It focused his attention, calmed his heart rate down, and he figured out, I'm in fact doing all of these problems wrong. But because of that, he was calm enough to go back, erase those incorrect answers, check his work, get it done, and he aced the exam. And so the fact that he was able to be the teacher and share that experience with his peers really stood out for me. Another one that really stands out for me is just how self-aware my kids are as a whole, since we've been doing mindfulness, they're able to stop and notice faster in the moment that they're not where they need to be. They're either not focused or they need a break. And so they're able to communicate that with me, so that rather than going through an entire 40-minute lesson and nobody's focused or paying attention, my kids can go, Ms. Hicks, we need to stop. We need to take a moment for ourselves, or I need to stop, I need to get back on track. So the fact that now they're able to communicate when they need those moments and bring it into the classroom has been just life-changing for me as a teacher to witness.
I think one of the favorites that our classes had here at McLean is the mindfulness eating. That was fun. We did like a mindfulness eating project. And it was very simple. It was raisins and cranberries. But the idea, we all tend to do things so quickly, and sometimes without thinking about what we're doing. And I think the students here, they're high school kids. They can really wolf down food and lunch. And so we did this activity where we had raisins, and before we even ate them, we spent time sort of feeling them, smelling them, feeling the weight of them, thinking about possibly where they may have come from. And there was this kind of process, and then of course we put them in our mouths and sort of thought about that. And everybody just sort of had fun, and I remember that the kids thought to themselves afterwards, they reflected on how they rarely eat like that. And that was enjoyable.
Mindfulness within education has huge impacts. It can help students, especially with high anxiety and attention issues, just to calm down and just still their bodies as best they can, even if they're still squirming. Just being able to calm down for 1 minute at the most, or even 30 seconds, can help prepare them for the rest of the day and just help calm that anxiety. Mindfulness within education provides a calming sense.
I think the biggest thing that mindfulness can do for education is it can teach kids how to self-regulate and how to be in control of themselves. I think that's a big piece that is missing from education. The idea that students can become the teacher and they can become the manager of themselves. And it's so easy to do. It's something that can be practiced anywhere. It's something that they can take with them starting in kindergarten all the way through high school. And if I can help my kids regulate their stress and regulate their emotions, then I've opened up their mind and I've relaxed them so that they can better receive the information that I'm trying to impart with them.
I really think that by giving students tools, what is paying attention? Like, we tell kids to pay attention all the time, but we never tell them how to do it. We tell them how to study for a math test. We tell them the skills that we're going to need to know on a history test. But we kind of say general terms like, I just need you to pay attention or focus. And I think what mindfulness really does is it gives kids that tool of how to refocus and what that looks like. And so it allows kids to feel successful. It empowers kids, which is really important. I think it also encourages self-advocacy. I think that it just puts everyone, not just our students, in a place that they are really ready to be open to learning, because it kind of lets all the other stuff fall away. I think it just makes us better able to learn.
If education is communication, then mindfulness can do a lot in education. Because if education is more than just filling the kids' heads up with ideas so they can make it to the next test and spout it out, if education is about understanding ideas and understanding each other, then mindfulness can help, again, it's kind of like a previous question, it can help set up the conditions for better communication and deeper thinking by being a little bit more present in the moment, perhaps recognizing when your attention is waning or going elsewhere. It can lead possibly to greater connection and empathy with other people. And so mindfulness can help with concentration and can help with communication, and those are key in exchange of ideas.